VikesNow, I'm Dustin Baker. This is the Sunday, September 18th edition. I spaced out the recordings a little bit this week, did one on the weekend because the game is on Monday, so I thought the timing would be a little bit more sensible doing it that way. But I'm here to talk over what I consider the 6 big storylines for Vikings and Eagles. This doesn't mean that they're the biggest in general, but these are the things I'm going to watch for, and consequently, I believe you should too. So a starter kit, I said this before earlier this week. The winner of this game on Monday night will go to 2-0, and whoever it is, I'm saying it unbiased right now, whoever that is will be considered the sexiest hot thing in the NFC, especially if the Saints somehow beat the Bucs, because then the Bucs stock would fall to the earth, and there would be no front runner in the NFC because most good NFC teams played like garbage in week 1. So the winner of this game, pretty much if the Bucs beat the Saints or not, is going to be considered a mini frontrunner to reach the NFC Championship. How long that lasts, I don't know, but we shall see. But the stakes are big because if the Vikings pull off a victory over the Eagles, it will solidify them in the early season as a really good football team. And a week and a half ago, we thought maybe they'd be a good football team. But after you beat the Packers, perhaps beat the Eagles on the road, then yes, this would affirm that the Kevin O'Connell hire is off to a wonderful start, and indeed he was the right man for the job. On Monday, I've put an open invitation to my Vikings territory men and women in our Slack group chat that Monday we'll have a little pregame show. Whoever wants to join, depending on how many people sign up, they'll get like a 1 or 2 minute speech to talk about what they're watching for in Vikings Eagles. So we'll have a big round table for you to watch Monday before the game. That's a little housekeeping, but let's get into these. The storylines to monitor per Dustin Baker. If you don't like these, then put in your comments the ones that I forgot. The first one, and I hope that these, I don't know if these are things you don't know, things that are just being lifted up, but some of these you'd be like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Heading into this season, 2022, the Eagles were considered by most credible folks the best offensive line in football. What does that mean? Well, the Vikings got lucky, sort of, against the Packers because both of the edges of the offensive line for the Packers, Eldon Jenkins and David Bakhtiari, were not playing. So the Vikings got a little bit of a gimme there, getting off the schneid with an undermanned offensive line. The Eagles, by my count, don't look undermanned. So you're going to find out how good the Vikings' defensive trenches are, mainly Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith, against an offensive line that many consider the best in football. I don't think that they're going to be without their 2 tackles, which is a big damn deal. So it's a very good test early in the season to figure out just how much of a pass rush this gruesome twosome of Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith can get off to. I think it's a very it's an apropos test, a fork in the road to figure out, all right, are these guys going to be the real deal? Because you would have found out last week if Jenkins and Bakhtiari had played. Alas, they did not. So now you get a offensive line that is indeed, I think, somewhat healthy and the real deal in the Eagles. Number 2, and I should mention that these aren't in any order of importance. Number 2 storyline after the Eagles having the best offensive line in football is Jalen Reagor. Zadarius Smith called his Week 1 contest a revenge game, and wouldn't you know it, he was a game changer on defense and affected the game, and the Vikings won. Now, Reagor hasn't been quite that outspoken about, sticking it to his old team. However, he did tell Chris Thomason, who's been on this show before, that, it's on his mind. He's going back to the team that didn't want him anymore. So Reagor, who did not have any targets on offense or didn't play any offensive snaps in Week 1, will get a crack at the Eagles a couple times via punt, and hopefully it's a bunch of punts he gets to see, right? Otherwise, there is a world where Reagor, now getting more acclimated to this complex offense, does see some offensive snaps and hence some targets from Kirk Cousins. And what better place to get off to a shining start than the team that just kicked your ass out the door? So the Reagor factor. This could turn out to be a nothing burger. He could just have a bunch of fair catches, and then I'll look like a moron. But that's okay. Just monitor Reagor, because this would be one of those things where an athlete would like to really stand out because it's Monday Night Football under the bright lights, national television, against the team that just told you sayonara. So, the Reagor factor, does he have any Zadarius Smith-like vengeance on his brain? Number 3 is the Vikings' run defense against the Eagles' run offense. In the last 2 seasons, Mike Zimmer's defense wasn't very good on the whole. Decent at certain times, shitty when it mattered the most in the final 2 minutes of halves. But the Zimmer run defense was never too good. Even when the defense was rocking and rolling, the run defense was always a little suspect. Well, in 2020 and 2021, it was really suspect. And last week, it didn't really improve. Now, it didn't matter because the Vikings only surrendered 7 points to the Packers. So the 6.2 yards per rush they gave up, say it with me, nobody cared. But now you're playing against a team who runs the football like fiends. They scored 4 rushing touchdowns last week, all different dudes: Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, and Miles Sanders. No passing touchdowns, although A.J. Brown did have 155 receiving yards. So they were able to do both. But the Packers threw the ball, I think I tweeted 70 or 72% of the time against the Vikings. Conversely, the Lions only threw the ball about 45% of the time against the Eagles. It's going to be 2 different styles. I don't think that Hurts is going to try to beat the Vikings by throwing it 45 times. If he has to throw it 45 times, that means the Vikings will probably win. But they're going to try the ground and pound bullshit against the Vikings defense, and we don't know if the Vikings run defense is back or if it's good. Week 1 proved nothing. There's a very vivid chance that the Vikings defense under Ed Donatel schemed it so that they were comfortable giving up some chunk rushing yardage to prevent the big play from Rodgers, which he's very capable of, especially when wide receivers named Christian Watson don't drop the ball. But I think you'll find out, because of the hodgepodge of Eagles ball carriers, whether or not the Vikings defense is at least average. Because if it does what it did against A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, it will be a very not fun Monday night for the Vikings because you won't be able to get away with it. The Eagles will keep running it until you stop them. That's what they do. And when you have a mobile quarterback on top of it all, it's even more vicious if you can't stop it. So monitor this unproven or questionable Vikings run defense against a pretty profitable Eagles run offense. Number 4 on my radar, I think I'm going to actually add one more to this. This is 7 biggest storylines. Something just came to mind that I forgot on this damn list. But the next one is not that. The number 4 thing for me is Irv Smith versus Johnny Munt. I had somebody email me for the Purple PTSD in Vikings territory mailbag whether or not they're working Irv Smith back into this offense because of injury. Well, he tweaked his thumb, and he was practicing for the last week and a half of the season. I don't know that they're making sure the thumb is okay. I believe them when they said last week that Johnny Munt was a better fit for the game plan they were running. And I've said 5 times on this show in the past, whatever it's been, 6 months, that with the Rams, they didn't need some big badass tight end to win a Super Bowl. It was Tyler Bigbie and Johnny Munt, TE1, TE2. So the fact that Irv wasn't showcased in week 1 obviously wasn't ideal, but Kevin O'Connell or Sean McVay offense doesn't need Tony Gonzalez, doesn't need Travis Kelce, doesn't need the best possible version of Irv Smith Jr. to tick. It can tick with Tyler Higbee. It can tick with Johnny Munt. So I don't think it was this unbelievable priority to get Irv cooking because it's kind of just gravy if he does. So now, if I'm wrong and it really was a terribly bad thumb that takes a lot longer than expected for Irv to get going, then yeah, he'll take his TE1 job back because, I kid you not, in week 1, it looked like Johnny Munt was the TE1. I'm watching Irv versus Munt. I have full faith and confidence that Irv will eventually get targets like you thought now for the past 4 years of him as a TE1. However, that did not happen in week 1, so it's a situation worth monitoring. Do they truly split tight end targets? Because that's what we've done with Irv Smith now since 2019. Find a dude who takes away half of his targets. Maybe that's the way they do it, and the Vikings are winning. Who cares? But in the first quarter, that first half, pretty much whenever, figure out who's on the field, if this is going to be Irv Smith's team or if this is going to be a sampler platter of Herb and Johnny Mundt. The next one is about Kirk Daniel Cousins. Something's got to give about his streaks. You know very loud and clear his Monday night woes. I think teams led by Kirk are 2-9 on Monday Night Football. He's got a little 2-game winning streak, winning 2 games at Soldier Field, so kudos to him. But his performance on Monday nights does dip a little bit. I think for his career, his passer rating is 98.8. And then on Monday nights, it dips to 89.3. So by his usual productive standards, he takes a small step down on Monday nights, and it just so happens that he played for Washington for however many years and wasn't a very good support. It's like the Stafforditis. It wasn't a very good supporting cast around him, and therefore they lost big games. So that's the streak. That's the streak that I don't know if they're still going to bring it up after he and the Vikings have won 2 in a row. But there is that sentiment that Cousins sucks on Monday night. He doesn't suck. He's just not as good as he usually is. However, something's got to give on the streaks is against the Eagles. Teams led by Cousins are 6-3. 9 times he's played the Eagles. 6 times his Commanders or Vikings have won. So he is wonderful against the Eagles, and I dug into the numbers. At Philadelphia, opposing quarterbacks in the history of football, Kirk Cousins' 112.1 passer rating is the best of all time. What does that mean? That means of all however many hundreds of quarterbacks have gone to play the Eagles in Philadelphia, Kirk Cousins' general passer rating of 112.1 in those games is the best ever. So the man does damage against the Eagles. The man does damage in Pennsylvania. So something's got to give there. He either sucks on Monday night, or he plays well and they win, or it's in the middle where I guess he sort of is average, but the Vikings find a way to win, which we would take. And that's what happened with the last 2 Bears games on Monday night. But yes, there's 2 competing streaks. The idea, the false narrative that Cousins personally sucks on Monday night. He doesn't. He's just not as good as his usual caliber self. Or that he's an Eagle killer. 6-3 against the Eagles, if you believe in quarterback wins, not too shabby. So we'll figure out where those meet. You'll see live and in living color which Cousins you get. The bad Monday night, the big bad wolf Monday night who sucks, or the guy that just slices and dices the Eagles all day. My final one, but I added one more on when I got into the gist of the show here, is that now, the secret's out of the bag. The Packers had this grand plan that we're not really going to cover Justin Jefferson, throw a zone at him, maybe frustrate him, and he won't be able to figure it out. Well, that didn't work. He tabulated 184 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. It was a big toe away from 3 touchdowns. So I doubt a team does shit like that again because you're going to get torched. Therefore, I'm going to guess that the Eagles are scheming how to stop Justin Jefferson. Because he played so well in Week 1 and was the best wide receiver in the league in Week 1, if not in general, teams are now going to have him as the focal point when they're game planning the week. I want to know if Jefferson is hitting that point where he is coverage proof, because only, I kid you not, a handful of men in the history of football have become guard proof or coverage proof, like Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens to an extent, and, Moss, even though he had some quiet games. I want to know it doesn't matter who you throw at Jefferson anymore, he's still going to beat your ass. That's what I want to know. And against Darius Slay, if they actually stick him on Jefferson, this is a good chance to see what Jefferson is made of, because it is severely unlikely that, like the Packers, they just kind of ignore Jefferson and hope for the best. In year 3, this is a good time to start to understand, is Jefferson Jerry Rice-like, that it doesn't matter if you've got an all-pro dude on there, he's still going to get you for at least 75 yards. Finally, one that I did not have on here, but I'm amending because this is my show, damn it, is the offensive line. They played decent against the Packers. It felt different, I can tell you that much. Cousins either marvelously improved his pocket presence in a summer, or the offensive line looked a little bit better. I'm going to guess it's probably the latter, or maybe a mixture of both. But the Eagles also have a pretty darn good defensive line. I know Derek Barnett is out for the year, but this is kind of just the ever-evolving test. You want to see, all right, so I think PFF called the Vikings offensive line performance the 14th best in the NFL last week, and we're like, sweet, this is awesome. We'll take it. If we can lock that in for the rest of the year, we'll do it. We don't need to get greedy and be top 10 or top 5. Let's just do top 14 so we don't roll back into the 27, 28 range where they usually end up. So 14th best, yes, we're having the digital parade for it, but I want to know, is it going to continue? Do we actually have a good offensive line? I think it's probably a foregone conclusion that Bradbury is Bradbury. But if everything else is pretty damn stellar, then maybe it really doesn't matter how bad Bradbury pass protects. Run blocking has never been a problem for this offensive line. So on this one, I'm really talking about pass protection. But like a lot of these, I want to know, is the offensive line that was formulated by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell's coaching staff, and to a degree, Rick Spielman, is it actually going to be good, or did they just have a decent game against the Packers? Now, you probably won't get a full verdict against the Eagles, but the Eagles' defensive line is pretty darn good. So this will be another stepping stone to figure out if this offensive line stuff once and for all is figured out, because you know in your bones that it's been a problem since Steve Hutchinson and Bryant McKinnie left the team. All right, I will be back with a crew of sorts on Monday, just a round table. I think we'll record that in the morning, and for your guys' sake, it should post about 11 a.m. Central or perhaps noon, which should give you 6-7 hours to check it out before Vikings-Eagles. That's all we got for Sunday, and skol, baby.